amber and red cases. In fact, this particular case was the first case who had undergone the smart scope screening and was referred to us. So we actually had to open, a literature and all to try and find out what does red imply. And then we started understanding, and then we decided that we will definitely follow her up, because the thing is, the idea was to screen and then maybe treat at the same time if possible. However, this screening part was being done by public health nurses, and the intervention part were not taught to them, so only the screening part. That was why they had sent them to us. Unfortunately, I did not meet this patient, so I was called over the phone regarding one patient coming, and since I was unable to attend, I had asked the one of my consultant to, if possible, assess her. Unfortunately, they could not do colposcopy that day, so they went ahead and did pap smear for that particular patient. So, do you think doing a pap smear for a patient who has been referred to us with high-grade lesions, is it logical? Do you think it is logical that we did that?
No, so as I said, all these AI-based screening tools, they are, put into clinical practice once they have matched the sensitivity and specificity of cytology and VIA. So if somebody has been referred to you with a high-grade lesion on this screening tool, one should definitely go with something which is more, which is associated with lesser false positivity. So definitely a colposcopy is straight away indicated. Or I would like to go for HPV genotyping.
Yeah. With HPV, the main issue has always been about cost and
Yes.
accessibility
So
and
definitely,
availability. Yeah.
colposcopy is a fair enough option in this patient.
Exactly. Many studies coming up, they are all vouching for AI, its importance in cervical cancer screening, and not only for like cytology analysis of the cervix, but colposcopy interpretation and even risk prediction. Majority are claiming, have established that it does improve reporting accuracy and efficiency also. So considering the instrument utilization also, it has been recommended that in low resource settings, the benefit is really good. However, obviously machine oriented. So I believe because the interpretation will be according to the data fed. So they have lots of algorithms fed to that machine. There are certain ethical issues, but I'm sure with time to come, it will all be cleared. However, in this particular patient, red screening has been done. Now she's come, she had undergone PAP reporting, and PAP actually reported negative for intraepithelial lesion or malignancy. So now a patient has been referred with red score in AI, but pap smear is now saying NILM. So what actually is triage? How should I be triaging this particular case? Already I have done PAP, now PAP is saying NILM. You did mention genotyping and VIA. So uh, obviously
So I would say that
colposcopy. Hmm. Yes, please, Dr.
I would
Helen.
say that cytology itself is a triage test.
Yes.
Cytology, in case in some HPV-based screening program, cytology is one of the triage tests.
Hmm.
So I think a triage, if somebody has chosen triage with cytology, I think, and it comes out to be negative, I'm happy with that.
Hmm.
But as I said, that if a tool is telling me that it's a high-grade lesion, there's always doubt in mind because I would like to do something which has better diagnostic accuracy. So first choice me would be a colposcopy in this case. But if the
Hmm.
patient has come with a pap smear saying NILM, I would be happy and tell her to come back after a year. It's okay. A cytology is
Yes.
a triage test.
Mm, because whatever three methods of screening that we have, we use it interchangeably as a triaging
Yes.
method also. AI,
Yeah.
I
Yes.
think,
Exactly.
yeah. Okay. So this patient actually, this is the pap smear findings that was reported. Although I've already read out the report as NILM, Dr. Sunita, can you please help us walk through the cytological findings, because the AI findings had said high grade lesion, probably because red color. But then our PAP was reporting as NILM. Can you please run through the reports and explain why
Yeah.
that report is validated?
Yes, sure. So the pap smear, uh, there were like several normal looking superficial as well as intermediate squamous cells. And there were plenty of inflammatory cells in the background. And we searched through all the areas of the smear which had been sent, and we could not find any atypical cells or even frank malignant cells. But since this information was given to us that on SmartScope it was red, so we had searched thoroughly. But then also, after searching for quite a long time, we couldn't find any atypical cells or even, for that matter, any malignant cells. So finally, we had to give this final diagnosis of negative for intraepithelial lesion or malignancy.
Hmm. Thank you, Dr. Sunita. So we were a bit at loss, but we proceeded with, ultimately we thought, okay, why not give colposcopy a try, because that was actually the reason for which the patient had been sent. So Dr. Garima, these were the colposcopy findings that we showed. So this is right after application of the speculum. This is the appearance of the cervix. Then this was after acetic acid application. Then the green filter, and this is glucosiodine. So based on these findings, would you like to give
Oh, yeah.
your...
Yes, colposcopy, I can see that in the lower lip, the squamocolumnar junction is receding inside the endocervical canal. So probably this is a type 2 transformation zone. I can see a white lesion, which is a milky white lesion with quite marked margins adjacent to the squamocolumnar junction in the transformation. And on green filter, a single, a fine vessel is seen adjacent to that white lesion. And on iodine, this is a patchy yellow stain that has, the area has failed to stain and it looks patchy yellow. So according to me, this I would like to score it with using the sweet score, and score comes out to be around 5. So according to that, it's probably a SIN2 or SIN3 lesion. So the next plan of management would be to biopsy this, look for the tissue diagnosis. Yes, I would like to biopsy this lesion and won't go with treatment straight away, because as you know that it is very important to risk stratify this patient. We know that the biopsy has, the cytology has come out to be negative, and on examining the Swedes, is 5, so probably it's a low grade lesion. So straight away, I would not go for treatment. I would definitely biopsy and look for the final tissue diagnosis.
Okay. So basically, we did the biopsy. These were the findings. I'd like to call Dr. Sunita again. Can you please give your opinion on the findings? Can you explain to us what are the findings that we can see here?
Yeah, so this is a colposcopic guided cervical biopsy, and what you see is a very mildly hyperplastic stratified squamous epithelium. So this whole thickness is that of a hyperplastic squamous epithelium. But as your colposcopy suggests, SIN2 or SIN3, nothing of that sort could be seen here. So we did not find any type of a high grade dysplasia or evidence of malignancy. And in the side, the area where you could see some, fragmentation going on. So there, that's a part of the stroma which was infiltrated by some lymphocytic cells. So basically, no dysplasia or CIN, nothing at all. So till here, so if we see, our pap smear finding is still matching with this cervical biopsy report, but somehow there is some discrepancy between your colposcopy finding and the biopsy report.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Sunita. So, based on these findings, Dr. Garima, what do you think? Should we just keep the patient under observation, or like, is any treatment warranted in this case?
So I understand it's a low grade lesion, and surveillance or treatment would be definitely individualized. We are going to explain the options available with the patient when the report has come out to be a low lesion. She can be very well put under observation or surveillance, and she can come back after a year, and then we can test her up with a repeat cytology along with an HPV or one can go for a colposcopic examination. And treatment is also an option in case she is very skeptical about the report and she is not comfortable in coming back to the clinic. Then a treatment can be advised. And in this case, since it's a TZ2, an excisional treatment would be preferred. If she opts for treatment. But surveillance is definitely an option in her case.
Thank you, Dr. Garima. Actually, my personal experience, I don't know. There was a time when we were young students, like patient party coming, telling us not to tell the patient about the disease and all. But treatment nowadays
I think nowadays,
patient's autonomy is very important.
yes,
Respecting a patient's autonomy is very important. Thank you so
definitely.
much for pointing out. I'm sure you're following in your areas also the same thing. That's why you give that very nice version of statement about that. So yeah, we discussed the results because for very unfortunate part was the patient was, after doing the screening, the patient was told that you have this chance of getting cancer. You go and meet the doctor immediately. So when the patient actually came to us, you can imagine hair raised, eyes red, swollen. What
I
must
know,
have
I know.
the previous day. Yeah. So we had to sit down. Her immediate response was, Doctor, I've been sent here. You do hysterectomy for me. So trying to downsize hysterectomy to other options was like, it really took time, but we did discuss the treatment option, had a long sitting with the patient. We told her about the advantage of surveillance, the pros and cons of doing the treatment. Then ultimately patient, see, follow-up was not a problem because she lives in Imphal area near, which is a plain area, and traveling for her is not an issue. So but then she requested if any treatment can be done, do it. If not, hysterectomy. So that was the ultimate discussion we had. If not hysterectomy, do something, but don't just keep me under observation. That was how our dialogues ended.
Patient had given you a clear mandate to treat her. So
Yeah.
I think if the patient is clear in her mind, then definitely go ahead and do an excisional treatment.
Yeah. So, like, obviously, ASCCP also has mandated that sweet score 5 or less, there are always lower risk of high grade lesions, and 6 or more treatment is recommended. But here we have a lower score, but treatment according to the patient. So we went ahead and did leaf biopsy for her. Options for ablation was also there, but that time we did not have the thermal ablator. We did have LEAP, so we went ahead and did LEAP for her. So these were the findings in the LEAP biopsy. Dr. Sunita, can you please run us through
Yeah,
the findings?
sure. So the LEAP biopsy report came to us, and then the biopsy sections showed features of chronic cervicitis, simple chronic cervicitis. And there was just infiltrate, the one which is shown with the arrow. So it showed simple infiltration by the lymphocytes in the subepithelial stroma, and no high-grade lesion was seen. Can we go to the next? Yeah. And in one part of the surface epithelium, there was this evidence of squamatization of the surface epithelium. So otherwise, the normal surface epithelium without squamatization would be the top layers, which are, which has a very clear kind of a cytoplasm, and the one which is shown with that arrow-like thing, so that shows the squamatization of the surface epithelium. And we could still see that the infiltration in the subepithelial stroma. Yeah, can we go ahead? Yeah, and then the endocervical part of the tissue that showed these nice looking Nabothian cysts, which were multiple in number. And if we see the side tissue, which is the connective tissue or the subepithelial stroma, that also showed lymphoplasmacytic infiltration. So again, no scope of, or there is no evidence of any high grade lesion. So,
thank you, Dr.
yeah.
Sunita. So obviously the final report given was chronic non-specific cervicitis with focal erosion, squamous metaplasia, and a Bothan cyst. Dr. Garima, what next?
I think you have over-treated her, so she doesn't need any follow-up. Just that routine screening, she should continue till the age of 65.
Okay. So, wouldn't you like to see, I mean, because in relation to
Final
that AI.
diagnosis is no, the final diagnosis is chronic cervicitis,
Mm,
and she probably treated for a low-grade lesion.
mm.
The previous PAP was normal. I think she can straight away be put to routine screening.
Yeah. So because we don't see much of how to follow up on the AI screening report, I think we will have more papers and recommendations coming up. I mean, in time to come.
Yes.
Uh, yeah.
Yes. So
Patient
one
was
message.
greatly relieved and very happy with the report
But one
because.
message from this case should be that if you're using AI-based screening, all they are still not recommended for primary screening. They
Exactly.
can be used for mass screening where they're where trained professionals are not available to screen. And
Mm,
secondly, if it is a high-grade lesion on a AI-based screening tool, they must always be triaged. And no decision making should be done based on just the high-grade report of AI screening because these are not validated with robust data on high grade lesions.
mm. Actually, our Manipur Health Services, the NCD department, what they are doing is they are training nurses to do VIA because doing organized pap smear test for everyone is it's not possible so far. So we have been doing VIA and we have been getting good cases also with VIA. Maybe I'll be able to share some data in future. But this particular part of AI screening was done as a project. I don't know how much and who are the people involved, not much idea. But they are sending patients, and most of the time we find that with biopsy, with high grade, amber colored also, not much of lesions so far. This was the only case with good findings. The other cases that were reported mostly had polyp and all. With more cases,
Yeah.
evaluation, maybe I can also give some more information. So thank you so much for your time. And I think the like you said, the message should be triaging is essential, and don't go straight away to treatment based on the interpretation given by the AI until and unless there is established recommendations coming up for AI screening. Thank you, Dr. Garima. With this, I'll move
Thank
on
you.
to the
Thank you.
next case. Dr. Raj Lakshmi,
Hi, Dr. Helen.
I, meeting you like this, it's like really fun, you know.
Don't worry, we'll meet in Imphal soon.
Yeah, sure, sure. So our next case, this, like I said previously, also second and third case are actually, yes, I think there is a question out here, Dr. Lata, should we hear him out? Search happen. It would be very, I think, nice if you can say something. Yes.
Yeah, please go on.
So,
Philippine, you had a question?
Yeah, madam. Which colposcope they used, madam, in that photograph that they have shown? The pictures seem to be very nice, clear. Just can we have just for our awareness or knowledge?
sir, the colposcope used was Boards video colposcope.
Okay, and the printer, madam, printer?
No printers, sir. We
No,
all
but
have the PDF. Huh? Yes,
no,
sir.
this is not the regular. This is not the regular output that a Bose colposcope gives, right? It seems to be through some other device because
No, sir.
you.
The ones so it is stored in the computer, and from computer we took out each picture.
Huh.
Yeah, and then we copy pasted it.
Acha, okay. But because the format of the photograph is small, it's a postcard size format, no? That's why I asked.
No, sir.
Usually
We
it's a A4
enlarged it.
size format it comes, no? In the
Yeah,
boards.
sir. It's all about AI again, I guess.
Okay,
So
okay.
what we did
Okay.
was we took out individual picture from the PDF that we had saved,
Okay.
and that we had enlarged and put it out, sir.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thanks.
Sir, regarding the case follow-up, would you like to ask, say anything? Okay, then I think we'll move on to the next case. So, Dr. Raj Lakshmi, what we had was a 38 years old lady. This was one of the case which we had screened as an outreach in a very remote areas in the hills where like it is very difficult to travel even by vehicle. So this particular case was 38 years old, 4 vaginal deliveries, 4 living issue, obese, general findings okay, only per speculum, bulky cervix, tropion, and PV normal size uterus and pernicious free. So for me now I know what is ectropion, but for starters like PGT interns and all, they all like have this effect, when they see ectropion, they gasp, cervix is very bad looking, madam, they say like that. So can you please help us understand what ectropion is about, and whether how much of importance should we give on seeing ectropion during post-speculum examination?
Yeah, ectropion, as we know, that it's a physiological condition and it's mostly seen in women of reproductive age group. What happens here is that in response to high estrogen exposure, the glandular endocervical epithelium, it extends outwards onto the ectocervix. So now the squamocolumnar junction, it moves away from the external os towards the outer side. So the columnar epithelium, it gets exposed to the acidic pH of the vagina. So now, usually most of these patients are asymptomatic, but still patients can present with vaginal discharge. They can have postcoital bleeding, intermenstrual bleeding, or they can have recurrent cervicitis. So being a physiological and benign condition, we should be aware that we should not worry too much about the ectropion, and usually no treatment is needed for such cases. But yes, initially in our PG days, we used to say that ectropion is cervical erosion, and we were very worried in those times. And we used to tell our consultant, sir, please एक बार देख लो क्या है ये, बहुत ज़्यादा angry looking cervix है. But it's a
Yeah,
benign condition.
the key word here being angry looking. Yes. Yeah. So cervical ectropion nowadays, for me also, I feel very good nowadays. Like my student says, ma'am, the cervix, have a look. And then, oh, don't worry, this is all okay. You just watch the transformation zone. So I reassure them like that. So the report that we got from this outreach screening camp for this patient was pap smear with this particular picture. Dr. Sunita, can you please help us run through the findings here?
So pap smear of this lady, we could see that, do you see the cell in the center, which has got binucleation, and it has got, yeah, this one. And the nucleus is, the size of the nucleus is enlarged. If we compare it to the cell, which is lying at the extreme right-hand corner on the top. So that is the intermediate, yes, this one. This is the intermediate cell. So we have to compare the size, how much enlarged we need a reference cell. So reference cell is going to be this intermediate cell. And this, if we see the cell of importance, here it's binucleated, plus the size of the nucleus is 3 times almost that of the size of the nucleus of the intermediate cell. So, and besides that, there are also perinuclear clearing or halo, which we refer to as coilocytosis. You must have noticed in our pap smear report presence of coilocytosis. So this is what is the appearance of coilocytosis is. So, and other parts of the slides were also examined, and it did not show any other atypical cells besides this one. So, and background had these inflammatory cells. Therefore, our final report of low grade squamous intraepithelial lesion was dispatched.
Thank you, Dr. Sunita. So this now pap smear is saying, if it was in your clinic, Dr. Raj Lakshmi, what would you do next? What would you
Because
advise?
the report is saying to be LCIL, so preferably we'll go ahead with colposcopy and biopsy. But HPV DNA testing can also be an acceptable option in such cases.
Yeah. So definitely HPV right now it's a bit like a platinum sort of post.
Same for us.
Really? I thought AIMS Rishikesh had higher here. Is it?
Yes.
You don't have HPV based screening over
For
there?
research purpose, we do have, but not routinely for the patients.
Okay, so
Even
like
at
our
AIMS
best
Jodhpur,
friend.
we don't have it. Even at AIMS Jodhpur, it is only as research, only for research projects.
Oh,
Lot of
Dr. Garima,
patients.
that's very disheartening to hear. I was thinking two aims, one Jodhpur, one. There will be a lot of HPV talk going on, but yeah, it's okay. I think it will come. We have
Yeah,
Sarviva.
it'll
It
come,
will come.
but not yet.
Yeah. So obviously, Foxy GCPR also have said, which is targeted at Indian audience, and we have our own recommendations. LCL and more than LCL lesion, you have to do colposcopy and guided biopsy. So I just have one issue out here. This particular patient was screened in August last year. And the pap smear, obviously mass screening, so report was a bit delayed for that reason. But despite the reports, the patient took a long time to come to us. And she actually came around November, I think, August, and she came in November. And seeing the reports, we thought, yes, colposcopy. But what actually should be the ideal timing between colposcopy and smear report? I have put up the ASCCP recommendations here, but still, I'd like to hear a few words from you, Dr. Rajlakshmi.
I'm not sure if the Foxy GCPR guideline says something about the timing, but yes, ASCCP do say that 6 to 12 months for low grade lesions.
So, and for high grade, it should be,
3 months.
triage as soon as possible, not 3 months. Even in UK, their health services have a recommendations that any high grade lesion in pap smear, they should have colposcopic evaluation as soon as possible,
Immediately.
preferably within 2 weeks. Yeah. So, Dr. Rajlakshmi, we did colposcopy for this patient when she came in November. So this was the report that we got. So this is the findings. This is after acetic acid applications, green filter, and Lugol sardine. So can you help us run through the switch score and regarding what to do, what next?
I think it seems to be a normal actropion, actropion, which is a benign condition. But on application of the acetic acid, if we see, there are some acetowhite areas on the 1 to 2 o'clock position. So considering that, we can give a score of 1 for the acetowhitening. And margins, I don't see any such lesion, but maybe for margins score 1. And Lugol sardine uptake, it's distinct yellow. 5 or 6 maybe squid score in this case.
So like CIN2 lesion, we also had the similar score. But what to do next? Should we biopsy, or should we go with treatment directly? What if it had been in your clinic? What would be your preferable options?
See, considering the SWIT score to be 5 or more than that, we should go for biopsy. But this looks more like an actropion to me. So in this case, if score we are thinking as 5 or more, so we should go ahead with biopsy.
Biopsy, yeah. So we did do biopsy. And for this particular case, however, because there was discrepancy in the previous case study also, just wanted to have a little bit of discussion, because these were the things that I found. No? Discrepancy definitely between PAP and colposcopy can be there. Can you have your insight on these particular points that have been presented out here?
Yes, see, colposcopy findings are mostly subjective findings. So there can always be an observer and interpretational differences between the reports. And pap smear, because if the samples is not adequately taken, then there can be either false positive or negative reports because of the inadequate sampling. So I think subjective and interpretational differences can lead to discrepancy between the reports.
Thank you. And so, in order to overcome that, so we have many options that we can follow. Now, we either repeat the test, or we can do biopsy of the area, or we can do excisional biopsy. Repeat testing in this particular case was out of question already. For coming out, it took her this many months to actually come to us.
Yes.
Yeah. So what we did was we actually took biopsy. Then and there we took biopsy. And so this was the biopsy report that we got. Dr. Sunita, can you please help us understand what are the findings that we are seeing here?
So in the first image, what we see is a strip of ectocervix, which display nuclear enlargement with mild hyperchromasia and coilocytosis. And all this coilocytosis, this is evident in the superficial layer of this biopsy. And if we see the basal layer, it shows slight hyperplasia of the basal and the parabasal cells. But all that coilocytosis is limited to the superficial layer. So a diagnosis of LCIL was rendered. And same same slide in other area, we could see focus of this extensive squamous metaplasia. I just could get a nice picture of just one this thing field. This is showing squamous metaplasia. And how do we say squamous metaplasia? If we see in this particular picture, this cluster of cell, it is lined by that columnar epithelium at the periphery, which is the lining epithelium of the endocervical glands. So squamous metaplasia of the endocervical glands. Normally, this gland must be filled with mucin. If we can see the top a few glands, just above this, above this large one, if you can see, then the top glands on the right hand side, on the right hand corner. So those the small ones, they are filled with mucin, the lumen. But here in the larger gland, which is below, you see the whole of the lumen is occupied by that squamatization or squamous cells. So giving the report as squamous metaplasia.
Thank you. So at least this time, the case did not have any discordant reports. We had pap smear saying LCIL and biopsy saying the same thing. But Dr. Rajlakshmi, in your experience, are these concordant reports always the rule of the play, or sometimes discrepancy between colposcopy and biopsy findings? Do we find it? Then what could be the cause, and how do we rectify that?
As I've told you, see, discrepancy can always be there because mostly these reports are based on subjective and interpretational results. So discrepancy can occur, but yes, also because in colposcopy, there can be inadequate colposcopy or limited sampling that can result in difference in biopsy and colposcopic findings.
So lots of subjective reporting is also a problem. And I think the only answer to this is like gaining experience. Inadequate colposcopy is a condition sometimes we cannot help, and regression of lesions. So the reason why I put up this was the interval between the patient being screened and then further triaging. These like were long durations. So this was the reason why I especially put up these points. So in this particular case, we did take multiple biopsies, and we was rewarded with good reports from our pathology friend. So what next? Now we have PAP saying LCIL, then we have biopsy saying LCIL. Should we be treating this case? And if so, what is the treatment mode, and how do we go ahead with the treatment?
See, again, preferably because the biopsy report is also saying LCIL and it's matching with the pap smear report. So in this case, follow-up should be done. We can keep the patient on follow-up by doing HPV DNA testing or co-testing or cytology or wire testing at 1 and 2 years. But still, if the low-grade lesion persists for more than 2 years, then the patient should be treated, preferably.
So I think Foxy GCPR says that if CIN2 plus and satisfy eligibility criteria, we can go for ablative therapy. In this particular case, would you like to consider doing ablative therapy?
Ablative therapy can be done, but because she's low-grade lesion, so I don't think so straight away going for an ablative procedure would be, she can be kept on follow-up.
So individualization of the treatment, like we were discussing previously. So this particular case, it took so long to come. We were thinking whether we should treat her or not. We discussed her conditions with her. This was a young patient, reproductive age group. She wanted to have more kids. She already had 4 kids, if you remember. But still
Yes,
she,
para for life.
yeah, we discussed the risk factors also. We said multiparity. However, she wanted to keep her options for having child open. But
That's nice.
yeah, she was okay with waiting for a year or two, but she asked if something could be done, and uh, we discussed the option of ablative therapy. I think this particular case with visible lesions we could have done. However, I just remembered our ablative thermal ablator was not functional that time. So we discuss the options for excisional treatment, the need for follow-up, and the need for follow-up because she had to come all the way from the hills. So I said, if not, if you cannot come down also, you need to follow up with certain people. So there are doctors posted in the hills districts also. So we communicated with them and requested if they can follow up this patient in case of problem to refer her to our institute. So having discussed the options and patient was happy with the options for excisional treatment, we went ahead and did LEAP for her. What is your opinion on the procedure that we have done? Do you think it was an over-treatment? What do you say, Dr. Rajlakshmi?
Over treatment, yes, we can say that because ideally we should keep her on follow up. But again, the treatment is always individualized and based on patient's preferences. If she's too much bothered about her report, then yes, you can go ahead with ablative or excisional procedures, whatever available.
So there is nothing we can do wrong. It's all about patient's autonomy and the
Patient's
situation
autonomy.
also. So that also we have to keep in mind, isn't it? I mean,
Yes.
aside from the guidelines, we have to keep the guidelines. They only help guide, but decision making is up to us and the patient and us, obviously. So one more question: if treatment is done, you know, Foxy GCPR says that, once a decision to treat a woman is made, it should be treated within 6 months in order to reduce the risk of loss to follow up. So this particular statement was what we were excited about also. That was why we took the decision for LEAP in this particular case, because we were not sure if she will come again. And because we had, communicated with the doctor posted in the hills, but even in hills district also, accessibility to district hospital in the hills road, it has always been an issue. So we told her the risks, pros and cons, and she was agreeable to it. And we went ahead and did LEAP for her. So, Dr. Sunita, these were the LEAP findings.
Yeah,
Dil-
so fortunately for this lady, there was no evidence of any dysplasia or malignancy, and a bit of the endocervical tissue was seen, and we could see some focus of squamous metaplasia happening around in those endocervical glands. But again, there was no evidence of dysplasia.
So Dr. Rajlakshmi can, so we had PAP saying LCL, then we had cervical biopsy saying LCL. Now we did LEAP. We took out a chunk of the tissue and now everything is clear. What do you think could be the reason, and what would be your surveillance plan for this particular case?
Okay, as you had already mentioned that this was actually an ectropion, which is a benign condition. So most likely the report was supposed to come negative following the excisional procedure. And we had slightly overtreated her based on her preferences and also based on the difficulties in the hilly terrain. So in terms of surveillance, I think we can go ahead for this patient as routine screening.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Rajlakshmi, for your insight. I'd like to share one more. This is not my personal experience. I have a friend in Nagaland. So, Nagaland is a neighboring state of Manipur. I met this young, enthusiastic gynecologist who is doing a lot of work on cervical screening. So, what she told me was she screened because not much of resources. So, but then actually, she runs a private clinic, and what she used to do was she does conduct outreach camp, which is based on VIA. And whoever would test positive, it seems she does leap for all of them. So it's a bit of an ethical dilemma, I guess, but considering that this patient might never come to her clinic or follow up even in government institute, we finally sort of, took it with a pinch of salt that maybe our over treatment is still an accepted protocol if we can reduce the incidence of cervical cancer. So that was how we rationalized and concluded. I'm sure a lot of questions will be coming up on ethical issue regarding treating like this. But then we'll conclude this case discussion here. Thank you so much, Dr. Raj Lakshmi. Finally, our own resident colposcopist, Dr. Ronita, she has done through and through follow-up of this case, excepting the primary screening part, which I did. So, Dr. Ronita, will start. So this was a 52 years old, menopausal for 8 years, 4 issue, BMI 25, upper abdomen okay, perspectillum cervix slightly, I think looking normal, it says okay. So uterus size is normal for the age and fornices are free. So Dr. Ronita, this patient had undergone pap smear. And obviously, I think I'll be referring to Dr. Sunita again to help us understand the findings that we are seeing in this pap smear.
Yeah, I would like to say this case was very interesting because in the requisition form, it came out that per speculum examination looking normal. But then when we looked at the slide, this is the two slides which you see, they are of the same one slide. Okay, so we got two slides from the gynec department. So in one slide, we saw these two areas. So the slide on the left-hand side, it shows sheets of atypical cells, squamous-looking atypical cells with a very high NC ratio, and it's very hyperchromatic. There we can see some amount of anisonucleosis, meaning difference in cell size. And some of these nucleus, they have a very irregular nuclear contour. All the features which points to the in favor of a diagnosis of HSIL. Similar kind of a appearance was also seen in other part of that same slide. But here the appearance, yeah, this one, here the appearance was that of a hyperchromatic crowded group. Here in the left one, it was a sheet pattern. In the right one, we could find hyperchromatic crowded group of cells with high NC ratio, coarse nuclear chromatin, and irregular nuclear membrane. So all these features giving us the impression of HSIL. And next slide, please. And these particular two pictures are taken from the slide, which is taken with the cytobrush. So there we could see on the left-hand side, atypical columnar glandular cells, which have mild nuclear enlargement. Yeah, this one. And hyperchromasia is seen, but there is minimal architectural atypia. So why would I say this architectural atypia? If we see, then this gives us an idea that we may be dealing with some kind of a very high-grade lesion, but that was not seen. So, and then again, on the different part of that same slide, we could see this kind of also hyperchromatic crowded group, where we see there is so much of overcrowding and overlapping of these hyperchromatic cells. And we know that this is endocervical because if you see in both the smears, the cells are having a very columnar-like type of a look. It's not squamoid at all. So we know that it is endocervical in origin. And I especially mentioned this point that no feathering is seen in the periphery. So if feathering is seen at the periphery, feathering of the cells, okay, then that would be considered as the features of adenocarcinoma in situ. That was not seen. Therefore, a final diagnosis of atypical endocervical cells, not otherwise specified, was rendered.
Thank you so much. So this was like good findings. And obviously, this is the reason why we try to access the inaccessible population. So we felt very rewarded. But however, bringing the patient in for follow-up was a big challenge. But fortunately for this patient, the moment we informed her, she came running and we tried her with colposcopy. I could not attend. However, our resident colposcopist did this and she will explain the findings to us. Dr. Ronita, can you please go
Yes.
ahead?
This is the after the application of the normal saline. Cervix is looking bulky as he is a menopause patient, and what it is slide is after the application of the acetic acid. Here we can see the stohide areas in on the both the lips, and with the diffuse margins, and for the entire lip is the like the transparent type of the stohide areas. For this posterior lip, we can see the seedy milky type stohide areas, then extending to the Sabacian canal also. And for the this green filter, we can see some here around yellow glow position. So some atypical vessels seen. And for the Lugans iodine, we can see the some pasty yellow areas.
So what score would you like to give?
Okay. For the aesthetic uptake, it was 1. Then for the margins, it was 0. Then for the lesion vessels, it was 2. And for the lesion size, it was 2. And then for the iodine uptake, it was 1. So score was around 6.
6. So what would be your next, do you think this colposcopic findings is a typical finding, or like you think this is not your typical colposcopic findings?
I
You
do not
have
have.
any problem with the interpretation? Do you think, because you're talking about aceto white and all, is this a typical aceto white that, I mean, of course, regarding the scoring, you did say 1. These findings, do you think you'll find it in other colposcopy findings with regard to age and all? Menopause, the fact that the patient is menopausal, do you think that could be attributed to the picture that you are
Yeah,
seeing?
cervix was bulky, and we can see that this nepotian follicles also, and some ectropion also we can see. Then for the transformation zone, I saw this squamocolumnar junction with some manipulation. So I get the TZ for 2.
Because there is discordant, the pap smear was saying so many
I
things.
think,
And
yes.
then, our scoring, however, is CIN2. So there's a slight discrepancy, and that could be maybe attributed to her menopausal status also, because we do find that menopausal female, there's a problem of vaginal atrophy, dry vagina, so instrumentation is difficult, and transformation zone localization is very difficult sometimes in few cases. Of course, in your particular case, it was not there. And even European guidelines in their recommendations for colposcopy, they do note that it is type 3 zone, transmission zone is very common. And atrophic epithelium is very prone to damage. While doing the colposcopy, patient's comfort level is primary. So we have to consider use of things like estrogen, lubricants, and even vaginal retractors, which we usually may not even consider in reproductive age group. So having said that, what would you like to do next?
I would like to
What
do
did you do? What did you do for this patient?
I did the biopsy, multiple site biopsy, and I did the ECC.
Why did you think you need to do multiple site biopsies for this case? Why did
It
you
was
think?
already a case of the high-grade squamous intraepithelial lesion and the menopause patient, and
Any additional procedure that you did during colposcopy aside from multiple biopsy?
ECC. I did the ECC, endocervical curettage.
Yeah, can you explain the reason for why you did ECC in this particular case?
In the pap smear, it was a HyCell with the atypical endocervical sense with not otherwise specified. And the cervical lesion was also extending the what acetohide areas also were extending to the endocervical canal.
So yeah, Foxy GCPR also does recommend, so not otherwise specified atypical glandular cells, we should definitely the cervical sample should be a part of it. So this was the findings of the colposcopy guided cervical biopsy. Unfortunately, ECC report we could not get because sample was inadequate. But Dr. Sunita, can you please run through the findings of the cervical biopsy that we did?
Yeah, so cervical biopsy showed a full thickness dysplasia. There was loss of polarity, high NC ratio, and hyperchromasia. And we could see good number of mitotic figures. If you could point your pointer there in the center, yes, this one, that's a mitotic figure. So we gave a diagnosis of squamous cell carcinoma in situ in spite of having this much of amount of dysplasia, because we could not find any stromal tissue or we could not visualize any of the stromal tissue. So we could not possibly have given any opinion on the stromal invasion. So we gave it out as squamous cell carcinoma in situ. And then in this picture, it shows an irregular glandular structure which are lined by cells having a very pleomorphic vesicular nuclei invading the stroma. So therefore, so initially in the first picture, it was squamous cell carcinoma in situ. And in this focus, we have a endocervical, a very atypical looking endocervical gland, clearly malignant, okay? So it was invading into the stroma also, and it had this very high-grade looking kind of nuclear morphology, therefore a diagnosis of adenocarcinoma endocervical type was given. And adjacent to that area, adjacent to the area in that second one, we could also see area of focal squamous.
I think Dr. Sunita is having some issue with the network. So I'll just go ahead. Final biopsy report read minimally invasive endocervical adenocarcinoma, endocervical type grade 2 with focal squamous cell carcinoma. So considering this report, Dr. Ranita, what did you do next? What did you plan for her? So now we have an established malignancy.
In the cone biopsy report is already showing the minimum invasive cervical adenocarcinoma and the squamous cell carcinoma in situ, and she's already the menopause patient. And so I will go ahead for the simple hysterectomy.
Okay. Any test, especially you would like to do before doing hysterectomy, and why?
ISPP test, the other investigations. Okay, I will want to do the any metastatic workup. Like
You did metastatic workup for this patient, Yeah, so why did you do? I mean, what were you trying to see? Because you had already taken decision on the basis of biopsy findings that there is minimally invasive endocervical adenocarcinoma.
To look for the any upgrading this staging, like in the MRIs, look for the any local area others involvement, then any other metastasis, look for any lymph node and all. Then
yeah. So I'd just like to make one thing clear out here. I'm sorry I skipped on that part of explanation. So these were the findings of colposcopy guided biopsy, and this was the findings of a cone biopsy. Patient actually had undergone cone biopsy before she underwent before you took decision for hysterectomy. So why did you do cone biopsy instead of moving directly to hysterectomy?
okay, Her in the this colposcopy guided biopsies, the diagnosis was the squamous cell carcinoma in situ, and she is menopause patient, and she had already the atypical glandular cells involvement in the pap smear. So I went ahead with the
So
whole
you
night
wanted to
biopsy.
have because obviously your ECC report was also not
Not
there
available.
because of inadequate sampling, right? Okay. So that's why in order to have a better evaluation of endocervical status.
Etiology. So I did the colon conization.
Okay, so you had a good report because of that. You got a minimally invasive endocervical adenocarcinoma, right? Okay,
Yes.
thank you. So obviously treatment recommendation by Foxy GCPR also says, that for a histologically confirmed AIS, CKC is preferred, but this particular part, it was not confirmed. Still, we went ahead and did because we wanted to have a better look at the endocervical status. An alternative, if CKC cannot be done, you can do LEDs also with top head. However, hysterectomy is definitely the treatment of choice in this particular case, which we did. So, even NCCN guidelines, because carcinoma stage 1A1, usually even cone biopsy treatment can be done. However, there are certain things, aspects that we need to have an idea before we consider any adjuvant. But simple hysterectomy definitely is the treatment of choice in this particular patient. And this was the biopsy findings from the hysterectomy specimen. Dr. Sunita, can you please explain the findings and why with an initial diagnosis of all in situ lesions, finally hysterectomy specimen was showing this?
Yeah. So, fortunately for this lady, in the first conal biopsy, the whole of the high-grade lesion was removed. And this is a picture of the hysterectomy done from the posterior lip of the cervix, which had shown focal area of HSIL. And rest of the hysterectomy specimen, there was not any very significant finding except for this lesion in the posterior lip of the cervix. So good for the female.
So validates a finding that carcinoma in situ, you can consider even conization as a treatment, but this particular case also had invasive adenocarcinoma, and conization, however, took off all the lesions.
That was
So,
minimally invasive,
yeah,
right? That was
yeah.
minimally invasive. So probably in that conization, when you did that conization, I think it was all removed. And just a small focus of this HSIL on the posterior lip was left.
Yeah.
And
So everything was okay in this particular case, and definitely it was a good thing that we did conization before that, because it gave us an idea as to the extent of surgery that we needed to do. So we went ahead, and that was why we did simple hysterectomy with lymph node dissections, and unfortunately all the nodes were negative. And so finally, good news. So Dr. Ronita, treatment done. I think it was a good outcome in terms of the surgical management. But how would you follow up this particular case?
Her was in the cone biopsy already the diagnosed case of the squamous cell cervical cell carcinoma. So I will do follow every 3 months for 2 years, then every 6 to 10 months, another 3 years, then annually.
So basically, we do follow NCCN guidelines
According to
follow up in our institute. So we would rather do that. Do you think there's any role of cytology? Because NCCN guidelines do say that, cervical or vaginal cytology screening should be done annually for detection of lower genital tract neoplasia. So is it routine in your institute? I mean, we do it routinely in our institute, this particular part.
yes.
We just completed the case, and I think she's yet to come for follow-up. Now I think we operated in January or March.
January.
January, yeah. So we'll be calling her up next January. Then we'll have further findings to look up to. Okay. thank you so much. With this, we conclude case discussion. And I think management itself, according to whatever resources we had, we did what we could. Thank you so much, Dr. Garima, Dr. Raj Lakshmi, Dr. Sunita, Dr. Ronita. I think with this, I'll hand over to Dr. Lata for her opinion. And of course, all the other eminent colposcopists who are here, I definitely love to hear from them also.
So I would first say congratulations, Helen. I think that was a very, very well moderated colposcopy MDT. So you had excellent cases, and I think your panelists did a great job of bringing out what was truly important. So I don't have anything to add to what was already discussed. I think Dr. Devanshi has put a very valid point as well, that adenocarcinoma can have further skip lesions up the endocervical canal. And there were two recent trials, the SHAPE trial and the CONSERVE trial, which is actually looking at less radical surgery for endometrial cancers, for cervical cancers, and a pre-hysterectomy cone and disease of less than 2 centimeters mandatory for that. So with that, I will thank all of you for joining us today. And if any one of you would like to host the next colposcopy MDT, please let me know. And I'd be very happy to invite you to do that. So
And
thank you all very much.
Dr. Lata, maybe I will take up on your invitation next time when we get reports of this particular cases. Thank you so much.
Absolutely, absolutely. That would be very, very nice to have some follow-up. So thank you so much. Have a very good evening, all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Helen and Dr. Lata. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.